Wonder Girl issue 1 by Joelle Jones, writing and art.
Yes.
Of course.
No longer a mini, of course.
No longer a mini, just an ongoing book. Which, obviously we're not upset by. Or at least in theory. I mean, we'll talk about.
Yeah, say, or are we?
We'll talk about how we feel about this issue, I suppose, and see if we do have a change of opinion on that. So this issue, of course, tries to set up the context. Well, I won't even say. I mean, obviously it's setting up, but I won't even say set up. I'll say more tease the context of Yara Flor in the greater Wonder Woman and even DC, universe, but certainly in the Wonder Woman corner of it, and potentially throwing some interesting swerves into what she might represent to all the other characters, and what her place is in between all of these other Wonder Woman characters, and the opening teases some of her backstory. We see seemingly, I assume, her mother, essentially being killed, with a dude who looks a lot like Ares, with that helmet.
Very suspiciously like Ares.
Yeah.
It never names him.
Never does. No,
it's very much the typical design of Ares with the helmet blacked out like that.
Yeah, this was a very effective opening, I thought, because it did this thing where all of the narration boxes, or not even narration, but the text boxes, they're all dialogue from like the plane, because obviously we had that 2-3 page story from before. And whatever
it was in Infinite Frontier Zero, actually, I believe.
Was it Infinite Frontier Zero? So there you go.
I think it was, yes.
Once again, Connor's an idiot. But
as I was I remember the event.
But it was that teaser. She was going to Brazil. She was getting on a plane, and that was basically the whole thing. She's on a plane. She's going on a plane. So, well, you can read this, and you get from the dialogue that she's on a plane, because it's like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to be descending. Blah blah. But it was kind of neat to start this and go, oh, that's right, she was going on a plane. Like, it was just, yeah. it was a nice follow-on from that little
completely
tease.
Unnecessary. Like, if you didn't read that, you missed nothing, basically. No. Especially as that was one of the smallest parts of that issue. And this here jumps right in. It doesn't reference anything. It just follows on from it.
Yeah, there's definitely. I think you have to read that issue for certain other things going on in DC, because for Batman, for example, the stuff that it set up for the Bat world going forward was
significantly bigger compared to this. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, for just the sake of this book, yeah, it wasn't exactly essential. It was just a little tease, and that was all.
I think it'll still be really nice, because they'll probably throw that in the trade, and it'll flow into the, you don't even need to put an issue break in there, I think, for that first one. Just put those 3 pages.
I think you do. So what you do, you put that 3-page story before your title page, and before your credits. You put that before everything in the issue. You set it up as like a cold open.
You could do, yeah.
And then you get the title page with the credits and the copyright and all that, and then you get to issue 1. I think that's what you do in the trade. That's my advice, DC.
Let's see if they take it.
Do the 3-page cold open.
All right.
So, after that one blank page you always have, because you always have that one black page before you get to
obviously,
anything.
Yeah. But this is a really, to get to this, it's a nice open, because immediately it's like a dream of some sort, because you've got the real world narration over it. Again, I say narration, the plain monologue.
Yeah,
because
I think why it contrasts so well is because it's such just a monotonous. Well, I wouldn't say lifeless, but it's it's just an everyday thing. You're on a plane.
Routine.
You hear the routine. You hear the, we all recognize this speech in some fashion or another. And it's
even if you've never been on a plane, you've seen a movie or a TV show where you've heard this speech over and over, because it's the same. It might vary slightly on the wording depending on your airline, but more or less.
I mean, to be honest, when it starts off, I can hear the little noise that it plays before they start talking.
Little ding dong.
Yeah, which again, maybe not every airline uses, but it's been used in enough movies that I can hear that noise before they start saying it. But what's so effective is that they're fighting this battle. All of these women, Brazilian Amazons. I don't know if that's the correct term we're supposed to use here, but and Yara, as a child, not willing to stand down, grabs a knife, runs up, and stabs maybe Ares in the leg. And Ares, of course, isn't that hurt by it, but he's like, well, I have been challenged, I must kill this child, as unfortunate as that is. And then
he just looks down and goes, oh dear, I do hate the optics of killing a child.
But, he has to do it, because otherwise he's weak, because he's not killed someone who's deemed to stand up against them. And again, it's presumably her mother comes over and offers herself instead. And we get this kind of tragic. So, but what's so good about this is obviously it gives us the tragic and for the most part mysterious past, where it doesn't seem like Yara specifically remembers this in detail. This dream might be even not as clear to her as it is to us in terms of the context and what's going on. But the best thing about it is that it shows her character even as a child, and like this sets the table. This is like giving you a taster of. This is who she's going to be. She's going to be willing to run in, even if sometimes it may be the stupid choice, because she's not willing to let the villain just get away with it, no matter what the context is. At least that's where she'll start. Maybe she'll learn lessons. She'll grow from there, whatever. But this was character appetizing at its best immediately, right at the start of the issue.
Yeah, it was real great stuff, and of course the art here is gorgeous. And lots of deep bold colors, all in like blocks as well. It's not like super realistic detailed. It's like yellows against grays, reds, purples. It's all just in big blocks of chunks of people in one color, backgrounds in another.
Yeah, notably the characters tend to be in the sort of the gray color. The exceptions being when someone's actually in a moment of like violence.
When the combat itself's happening, they're in red.
Yeah, because when she stabs him in the leg, like both her and him are red, but the rest of the page they're both grey.
Yeah, it's the same on the very first page when the actual battle's happening. They're all in red, except for like her and her mother, who are we're saying mother, but the ones hiding are in the grey purple. Yeah,
and then the same with the beheading as well. The red for that page. Notably, or that panel, sorry, and red for also the reaction panel of Yara, who does seem to get some blood on her face, and that's maybe why it's still red, because the effects of that violence is still infecting the panel. Yeah. So, yeah. So as the issue goes on, and Yara's talking to this other passenger on the plane about, she's coming to Brazil. Her aunt never wanted to take her there, who looks after her. But all of a sudden, it kind of makes sense. Assuming this one who holds her at the end of this scene in the dream, or the flashback, whatever you want to call it, presuming this is the aunt, or at least someone who knows what happened there, you completely get why she doesn't want her to ever go back there, or even talk about like their time in Brazil and this past. Like, no, you're away from that. You're not part of this lineage. We're just over here.
Especially as the next few pages go on as well after this, where you see people reacting to her presence in Brazil, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe she was kept away for a reason.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that separately, because I think that's very specifically odd how everyone seems to feel or sense that she's in her homeland again, and what that maybe means. I want to say that there's a really inventive layout, which doesn't look inventive at a glance. This first page in the plane, where she's talking to the old woman.
I really like this as well.
Where it actually snakes around the page, even though it looks like a pretty typical, just boxes of typical comics. But obviously the bubble sort of takes you across instead of going down to the panel underneath, because it looks like two columns effectively, but it's not in how you read it.
And to go back across just by the way there's no overlapping bubbles in this time. The bubbles aren't even like leading your eyes in a certain direction, but just because of where the actual panel placement is, where it's kind of between the two, in terms of just its height. To go back across and then down. It flows so well. And like I say, it could easily have just been two rows or just a standard block of 6.
Yeah, I think mostly I'm just impressed that it never became an issue. It never became a problem. It was just always. It still made sense the whole time. And I think the effect that it gives doing it this way, as opposed to just having a more traditional layout, which would be safer. And a lot of artists go the safe route because sometimes they do mess it up. Is that it kind of like I always like to compare panel layouts and panel sequencing to movie editing, because it's how I can sort of phrase it in a way that it translates, and I can sort of explain what I mean by the effect. This to me is the effect you have in a movie scene where you're not cutting to a new scene, but you're sort of chopping up the scene, so there's kind of a flow as it jumps from one part of the scene to the next part of the scene. But there's clearly chunks cut out of it, but it still flows really well, as if the conversation isn't being interrupted. And it's kind of obviously a really fake movie thing, because no conversation actually exists that way, but it kind of flows on as if the conversation is going by, even though there's these jumps in time in the actions.
I think as well, just like if you put this as, because it's essentially 6 panels, ignoring the very final one. If you take it as 6 panels and just lay it out as a grid, it's fine. It would work. It would read functionally well enough. But I think the fact that you have to like move your eyes across back and forth gives it this physical jump that you're doing that makes the passage of time seem a lot clearer than just move to the next panel because you're going backwards and forwards.
I just realized the shape it almost makes it a Flash logo, the way you read it. Because you start up at the plane at the top right.
Yeah.
And you sort of go diagonal to her looking at her brochure, and you have to go up to the right again for the next of the air hostess.
It's like directly across, yeah.
And then okay, you go straight down there, but then you go diagonally down again to the other side.
Yeah.
And then you go almost directly across to the other one, and you go diagonally down again. It's you get a bit of a lightning bolt kind of shape.
You do, yeah.
Through the ordering. It's very interesting, very, very. But it's notable that as soon as she someone's got a sign out, saying, John McClane, Mr. McClane, whatever, and she's like, California, and she's complaining, right?
And she's annoying this poor old woman who's just tried to be polite, and then by the end of this, she's like, oh, thank God, freedom! Don't have to listen to her anymore.
Yes, and for anyone who thought I was just talking nonsense there, go watch Die Hard, you filthy casuals.
I assumed everyone knew what you were talking about there.
I know there's going to be someone going, what's he talking about? She's not in California, she's in Brazil, is he not paying attention? Anyway, but yeah, we cut to Themyscira, and notably Nubia here, which, by the way, I love seeing this take, because all I've seen in Nubia, at least recently, has been the backup from the Future State stuff, right? And I love how much older she appears here. She looks like a sort of, not like an old person, but like a woman, like a grown woman who's now like 30 or whatever.
And is Queen Nubia.
And Queen Nubia, yeah, and she's tough, and she looks really, I don't know, strong and imposing, but not in like a intimidating way, but more in a sort of like like a strong ruler. She looks like she
looks like the part of leadership.
Yeah, she's got the cred. Now we go to Mount Olympus.
I just want to say, I love the sequence of these pages, where the names of the places come up and they're very stylized, and it's very different from the rest of the book, and it feels very classical, in that sense. It is harkening back to those things. It's very different to everything else in the book, which feels very modern.
Yeah. We go to Mount Olympus. We hear Hera also react to this, which is stronger. It kind of progressively in some ways gets stronger because she drops a glass, whereas before it was just kind of like, hey, is it possible that so and so is back in Brazil? And then we get to Bana Magdala. Do you know what this is? Are these characters?
Yeah, these are the Amazon tribe that Artemis is from.
Okay. Well, it mentions Artemis here, actually. You're right, but
yeah,
I'm less familiar with these characters, so this one, like,
they're not used as often, but this is a thing.
It paints this picture that everyone is reacting, and that's the thing. Is the next page is this 2-page layout where Yara's walking outside the airport, and there's all these panels around her of just everyone in the DC universe essentially reacting, and this is including like Nightwing and Batman and Superman and Catwoman, and
Yeah, and it's mostly just panels taken verbatim from them books. Like I recognize most of them. And obviously there is 1 or 2 from the Future State, Wonder Woman issues, or was it Wonder Woman that we had? Was her book just called Wonder Woman in Future State?
No, that was the other one. Hers was.
Because the other one was Immortal Wonder Woman.
Oh, in that case, it was just Wonder Woman then.
Was it just Wonder Woman? Yeah. So there's a couple of panels from that in there, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. No, but it's just, it's just a fun 2-page. But it makes it feel like her stepping back in Brazil is a big deal. Like, for some reason, her going back there and unlocking whatever her potential is going to be is going to make major waves for all these, particularly the Wonder Woman communities that we see. And we have, a pretty, again, strong showing. You have to set up her character, because as much as we've read the 2 Future State issues, we've read the tease from the Infinite Frontier issue 0, whatever.
Not everyone has.
Yeah, it's very important for issue 1. The first part sets up what type of character, her fierce spirit that she has. The second part is about saying, okay, her presence here is a big deal and it's going to create waves. The third part is giving us more of her current personality with her, this bus driver and talking to him about the traffic and all the other people in the bus singing, and him kind of flirting with her. It's very pleasant. This is a good sort of like, okay, here's what the tone of the actual like main part of the book is going to be like when she's interacting with others. But the end of the scene, more importantly, is like, okay, here's her hero moment. This is her doing something before she even knows that she's special. This is her doing something because she just is a hero and she's going to try and do the right thing. Because there's been a car crash and she's going to try and help someone. And it's like fundamentals, just all these things neatly one after the other.
She's just a good person.
Yes. So really good stuff. I thought the art was really good. I thought it did a really good job of, without being sleazy, the way that she kind of leans in to check what's happening up ahead. And you can sort of tell the bus driver's like, damn, but without it being...
He was just like, so many distractions while he's staring up at her.
Yeah, so it does this thing of like making her feel like, okay, he's like so excited that this beautiful woman's in his presence and is like getting close to him, but it never feels like he's perving on her or the art's being pervy or anything like that.
I think it's notable that he's looking up at her face the entire time. I think that's what helps here.
Yeah. But notice that she comes from out of his box, out of his world, and into his world. It's it's a neat little touch. But she runs off to go help save someone from a car. There's an explosion, all the rest of it. They introduce themselves to each other. His name is Zhao?
Maybe?
Zhao? Yeah. I have to admit, I have no idea how to pronounce that name. It's J-O and an A with an accent and then an O. So, if anyone who speaks Portuguese...
I'd have probably said, like, Joao? But maybe? I don't know.
I think my biggest mistake I make sometimes with foreign names, or even just foreign words, is that sometimes I take all the vowels too literally, and there's usually less than what I think there is when I actually hear what it's supposed to sound like.
I think what it is as well is, what often happens is they're still saying all those sounds, they just say it quicker. So it sounds more natural when they say it. They're in there, but when we do it, we break it down a bit more because we're unsure on how to say it.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
So there's a 2-page layout where, going back to the 3 worlds is what I'll call them, where it sort of follows the conversation. We're all just basically discussing what to do. Like, we have to deal with this, Nubia is leaving. It's like, we have to like get her out of there. we can't let her be in Brazil. Whereas obviously Artemis and her crowd are like, we'll kill her. Like, she must be killed. So
Hera's got her own plan as usual.
Of course. I mean, maybe this Instagram dude's and he's intentionally annoying, don't get me wrong, this is not a critique of the book, but he's definitely the worst character in the book. If that makes sense.
Definitely want to punch him in the face.
Yes.
But that is it's very much like I say, it's exactly what I would expect from this type of person.
Yes.
I just would not like this type of person.
I just particularly hate the phrasing, which I don't think I've heard it phrased exactly this way, is make sure you pound that like and subscribe.
I've definitely heard that from someone at some point.
I've heard smash that like button, and that's why it's like everyone know just how much I hate the phrase pound that like and subscribe.
Are you telling me you're not ending the show this week with that?
Even though I fully get behind the idea that you should like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, but I hate the phrasing pound the like and subscribe. But do make sure to like. Yara's at a waterfall, and she looks down and there's a big swirly happening in the water, which is not
a big swirly.
A big swirly. Yes. Big sinkhole looking thing. And out comes a chain and pulls her into the water, and her cliffhanger at the end of the issue is do you know what this creature is? Who this creature is?
I'm 90% sure this is a siren, based on the fact that before anything comes out of the water, you hear the music notes. Music out of water in mythology. No, I mean, my mind goes straight to a siren.
I was just half expecting you to actually name this being as if it was something specific.
Sirens generally don't have a specific name.
Well, yes.
As a rule, they're just sirens.
Yeah. She's big, she's snake-like, long white hair.
And I think it's as you say, a chain comes out. It's very notably her, bollers, that she has as Wonder Woman, her lasso equivalent.
I'll be honest, I don't know what it was called, so I just said chain.
Okay, fine, but worth noting that it is
ballers.
What we know. Ballers? I'm sure they're called ballers.
Ballers?
I'm sure they're called that.
That's maybe a weird word. I'll like that word. It's a weird word.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm misremembering.
I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
Either way, her lasso equivalent that we know that she has. Very interesting to see it kind of be here. And I know you're going to hate this, but Arthurian vibes. It's very Lady in the Lake here with the Lady in the Lake presenting the sword. I'm kind of getting vibes of that here with the siren presenting the the thing that makes her what she is.
Aye, but good. So I think it's a speculation here about why everyone's scared of her actually accessing her power and what she's going to unleash, either in herself or through her enemies that might re-emerge because she's there, or something. Like, what is the big worry? Why is everyone shitting themselves that Yara is going to cause an imbalance in the Wonder Force or whatever we're calling this?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly. Like, they're clearly scared of her. For sure.
And, I was listening to all the things this issue 1 does effectively. Maybe the one I should add on to that is it gives you a hook, a mystery, something that we don't have an answer for yet, that it's teasing heavily. But so on that front, it does everything an issue 1 does. It doesn't rush to her being in the costume. It doesn't rush to her, being so far. And maybe it helps that we read the Future State 2 issues. So, we've had her in the costume. We know what she's like to operate as Wonder Woman. This is us getting to take her time and having her reach that point a few issues in when it's natural, when it makes sense, when they've built it up properly. So,
yeah, I think if in my head, I'm assuming the first arc of this is still what they pitched originally as a mini, which was like 6 issues. So I'm assuming that first 6-issue mini or so is going to be about her becoming Wonder Girl, essentially.
I'd suspect this is basically a Wonder Girl year 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it even says at the end, next a hero's journey begins, which. So it begins as implies it's not going to be there next issue either. So I would say probably not until the end of issue 5 or 6 we're kind of really at that place, which is fine.
Oh yeah, fair I prefer. I wouldn't want them to rush,
especially when it's this good.
Yeah, it's very good. The character is so likable and endearing, and I think the way it's teasing like everyone else reacting to her is so good. This is the thing where it's anchored more in the character than it is the mythology, although even though it is clearly loving using the mythology and like using that for like these big spectacle moments. But this, because I do think some people probably get confused as to why I like certain things and don't like other things when it comes to this stuff, because you assume, because I get really bored by mythology. The main Wonder Woman book, I feel, is the mythology is coming first, and that's the important part. Here, Yara Flor, who her character is, and what she's going to be is the important part. And
I think it's interesting how it does that without actually having that much of her in this book, in this issue anyway, because like the start is flashbacky stuff anyway, so let's not really count that. You've got the little bit of her on the plane. You got 2 pages of that, and then you've got the extended sequence of seeing everyone react to her, and then you have the stuff with the bus and the accident. So it's probably less than half the issue that's actually her character in the present day running, doing stuff, especially with any dialogue.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though, because it's one of those things where the other characters are still talking about. In fact, one of the things that I always come back to when I'm complaining about the New 52 is how everything felt so insane. In almost every character's book when the New 52 started, it was the main character was in almost every single page. And it felt like the wider world was either not existing or felt very distant from them. And this is first issue, it makes her feel like part of a world. They've not interacted with her yet, but it doesn't matter. They're definitely going to. Like the characters are reacting to her existence and what it's going to lead to. Already, it feels like she's part of a larger world, and that her existence isn't just defined by her herself. And that's good for storytelling, because if your main character is not going to affect that, if everything's just built around your main character, even though technically that's always somewhat true, if it feels that way, it feels a little bit cold and insular, and this doesn't feel that already. So yeah, I mean, as far as issue ones go, is you don't get much better than this.
No, it's pretty up there. I think the only thing that will like hold it, I say hold it back, I mean, stop me giving it like the highest score possible, is that it just doesn't have the extra wow factor spark that I would give to something like that would be a 10. Like where it just like comes out of nowhere and blows your mind. Like I think like that reaction we had for the future state issues when that first one came out, we were all just like, wow, this is so fresh. It's not quite got that sheen to it, but it doesn't do anything wrong at all.
No, I mean, alternatively, it could have hit an emotional beat, which is hard to do in an issue one, especially with a pretty much brand new character. Barring a couple issues, she's brand new. So, but it's one of those things where it fundamentally does a lot of things right, and other issue ones can often fail, especially when they think they can rely on previous things that have teased or been prologue to the main book or whatever. So, no, it was basically exactly what I hoped it would be, and tease some more and give it a larger context. And I'm looking
very
forward,
excited for more. Yeah,
to the year one, the origin of Yara Flor.
And we can now confirm we are glad that this is no longer just a mini.
That is true. Yes, we were being cagey before, but yes, this is no longer a mini series. So, what are you giving Wonder Girl?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
Issue 1. Yeah, I was thinking 9 out of 10. We talked about the art in the opening sequence, maybe not as much for the rest, but it is obviously very sorted out. Obviously, the ending with the siren is particularly... And of course, Connor recognizes Siren because his favorite TV show of all time is, in fact, Siren.
It's true.